Linkin with Robbie. So dude hit me in my DM, right? And I'm just like, all you niggas freak out, and that's just all it is. First off, girl, fuck him. And you are now listening to Linkin with Robbie. Okay, so boom. Diddy trial is still going. It's still the trial of the century, and it's still U.S. versus Combs, and prosecution has had a witness on the stand since my last episode. I left off on day 15. My birthday was coming up, the next day. I even took off from work, so of course I wasn't going to pod. I'm sorry. I do apologize. I know I should have been keeping coverage going as I go, but I had to take a breather so I can celebrate my own life instead of worrying about where his life is going, because his life is already done. But needless to say, prosecution brought in Jane Doe. If you know who it is, then you know. I'm not going to expose her, but we all know who she is, basically. She's a famous rapper's baby mama. Leave it at that. So Jane Doe basically came in just to add more clarity to what's going on, and I guess you could say she's his last girlfriend, or maybe even current girlfriend, depending on how you look at it. Basically, they met back in 2020 when Diddy was dating someone else, which was her friend. Needless to say, the friend was seeing someone else, so she didn't have a problem. Jane Doe didn't have a problem with going ahead and reaching out to Diddy and linking with him. They had been text messaging each other for a while. So they went on a date, basically. And the date consisted of 5 days. Now, what Diddy did with this girl was a little bit different than how he treated Cassie. So in this standpoint, he kind of courted her. They had a lot of one-on-one time for a while and a lot of things. And then he eventually introduced the freak-offs in like a fantasy way. Basically, like, have you ever fantasized about anything? What's your nastiest fantasy? What's your deepest, darkest, fantasy? What you want to do? Any kinks? Any things you want to explore? And she looked at it like his role-playing. Eventually, he was like, how about we bring some of these fantasies to life? I got some people. And he started introducing her to different escorts and male entertainers and performers, porn stars, basically. And basically introduced her to that. So she was down for the get down. And then eventually it turned into, hey, why don't you move over here to LA? And so she did that. He paid for that. That was like $6,000. Then eventually he was paying for her rent. And on top of that, giving her $10,000 a month. Mind you, he's still paying her rent until this day. He's even paying her, I believe, for her attorney or her representation. There's so much going on. So, needless to say, as the relationship transpired over time, she became more and more frustrated with how she was being treated in the relationship. She saw it as, oh, Diddy's gonna be my man. I'm gonna be his girl. We're gonna be together. Whoop de whoop. I guess she assumed she was gonna get the Cassie treatment. But what ended up happening was Puffy, I'm calling him Puffy, Diddy, Mr. Love, Sean, he decided to go ahead and basically was just like, nah, I'm only going to use you when we having a freak off. Now, mind you, when it came to them, they were calling them hotel nights and movie nights. Now, a hotel night would be when they would get a hotel and then he would invite escorts over, the whole nine. And then a movie night would be, I guess, when they would watch their own films. I guess. I don't know how sexy that could be, but they would sit and watch their own films and reenact or whatever the case may be with that. And in the beginning, she was down with it because, as you may know, she was doing it to please Diddy. So this is my man. He want to do some nasty shit. He want to link with some other guys to bring some escorts. Fine. And in the beginning, she was okay with it. And it became to the point where she started facilitating it a little bit so she can control who he was having come in there to have sex with her, because he would bring in random porn stars or random entertainers she didn't know. Or one time he brought in some nasty, sweaty man who she was not attracted to and she did not get pleasure from. So it would be certain ones that she would be like, okay, well, let me just call him and bring him back over to get Diddy to even talk to her, to get Diddy to see her. So she would set up these arrangements and be like, yeah, let's go freak off, let's go do this or whatever, hotel nights, just so I can spend time with him, which is crazy work. It even happened on her birthday. On her birthday, child, she spent most of the time fucking in a hotel room, and she was expecting it was going to be like some romantic getaway type shit. only for him to leave after the birthday, for him to go ahead. And she see he on Instagram with all these other bitches on yachts, traveling around the Turks and Caicos and doing all kind of hoopla and stuff. And she like, but I'm the one that got to be sitting in the hotel room getting nutted on, fucked from here to there to the Himalaya. And what makes it even crazier is that, you know how Cassie was only like taking maybe like 2 or 3 dicks that night. You know what I mean? Baby girl, he was rotating them in and out. It was like a new nigga with a dick every 5 seconds. Like, one would nut, do what he got to do, and another one come in, and another one will come in, and another one will come in, and he would have her fucking for like 48 hours and 72 hours just getting dick nonstop. And she would do all that just so at the end she could be able to say, okay, now I can have sex with Diddy. It started getting to the point where sometimes he would not even be available after that. He would just leave and leave her there to fuck. Just leave her there to fuck. And he would go and be like, all right, I gotta go, shorty, I'm out. Once he got whatever he wanted from it, once he got to see that nut or whatever he wanted to see, because you know he directed it and he controlled the set. Which means like it was a certain time and you had to be doing oral for a certain amount of time. You had to be doing masturbation at a certain amount of time, and there was no ejaculation to the end. And then she would sometimes try to manipulate the situation and try to speed up the session so she can make it be over quick. And he'd be like, nah, slow that shit down. No, we're not ready for that yet. No, we're not ready for you to get fucked yet. No, we're not ready for this to happen yet. You need to be sucking dick until I say stop. I don't care how many hours it's gonna be. You're gonna do this until it's time for you to get the dick. Madness, because I wish somebody would ever sit up in my face and tell me, no, you got to put the dick back in your mouth. You can't stop. Any freaky shit I do it on my own free will. Ain't nobody gonna be telling me what to do. So that part alone is sex trafficking, because it's like you can't sit up there and dictate somebody and when they should be using their body and when they should stop using their body. If you guys are going to be doing some open relationship shit, it needs to be open and not so controlled, like such a controlled environment. So that alone is giving weird vibes. And then on top of that, to make matters worse or even crazier, however you look at it, he's paying for everything. He's funding her lifestyle. So now he's treating her basically like one of the escorts. He's treating her like that, like, okay, I'm only gonna call you and be around you when I want when I want to see you get fucked, or deal when I want some freak stuff, or when I want to go to get a hotel night. Any other thing, he didn't want anything else. She was repeatedly begging. She had multiple text messages that the prosecution brought up, multiple notes that she had written down on her phone over the last few years, from 2021 to 2024, basically, of her basically being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I want to spend time with you. Why I got to suck dick to spend time with you? Why I got to get fucked by all these men to spend time with you? I don't want to be used for that. And every time she would do that, he would hit her with the flip. He'd be like, all right, well, we ain't got to do this no more. I think we should just be friends. I'm breaking up with you. Which implied that, baby, I'm cutting you off. I'm not taking care of you. I'm not spending no money on you. None of that shit. You're being ungrateful. You're not appreciative. You're giving me stress and headaches when all I want to do is have a little fun, and I'm being open and honest with you. The gaslighting is wild and crazy. Like, can you imagine being in a relationship with somebody and they're like, well, if you don't want to do it my way, I guess I got to break up with you. Knowing they really don't want to break up with you, they're just using it as a manipulation tactic to get you to stick around even longer, because they know how bad you want to be with them. They know how bad you need them financially. They know how bad they got that control over you. So they use it to control the situation and manipulate the environment to where everything is at the back in hand. And it's really sad. But I can say, when it comes to Jane Doe, her testimony has been a little weird. Like, there's been so many details that's been given that's kind of like, okay, that's sketch, Diddy. What the fuck? Like, she was his Bert to his Ernie, like Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street. Everyone knows that on Sesame Street there was 2 characters who was roommates, quote unquote, which, you know, later we found out most like they were gay lovers. So the fact that he chooses that to be like, I'm earning you, Bert, already alone was weird. Okay, so basically when it came down to these type of situations, I'm going to try to go through my notes. I wrote a lot of notes. They're all over the place because I was going off of memory and I was just going off of recaps that I was following to get caught up. You know, Long Crime Network, Armand Wiggins, Tisa Tells, even DJ Academics. All over the place, just getting caught up what's going on and just really staying tuned in. And so outside of the Bert and Ernie foolishness and him providing pink powder and other drugs and paying her rent and giving her $10,000 a month up until today, she stayed in a relationship with Diddy up until his arrest. She was still dating him, so most likely we're gonna get to the point where they reveal that she was the girl that was in the hotel room when he got arrested. You know what I mean? She helped arrange the freak off sometimes because she wanted to be around him. So she knew if she wanted to spend time with him, all she had to do was test him with like, "Hey Diddy," which she did. They had record of it. "Hey Diddy, I missed that hard dick. Hey Diddy, I want to get fucked tonight. Hey Diddy, let's make a movie. Hey Diddy, I'll set up the hotel." She would do anything to get his attention. It would work every time. And then when he didn't get his way, he would disappear. And she would panic and she would freak out because she's like, "Oh my God, how am I going to continue living the way I'm living? Oh my God, am I ever going to see him again? If I ever going to have him?" But at the same time, she would get jealous and she would get pissed off because she would see him running around here with Young Miami, Gina, whatnot, just basically just publicizing his thing that he was doing. He was going on podcasts talking about fucking for 48 hours and all the things he was doing when whatever he was doing, freak shit, and just exploiting it while she's sitting at home, or I guess you could say in their home, or the one that he's paying for, wanting attention and wanting some time with him, and she was not getting it. So a lot of her testimony, you could see the jealousy and the bitterness and resentment that she had for him, but she's still technically with him. So it's one of those complicated testimonies that's like, you were being sex trafficked, you was being taken advantage of, and yet you still, not only did you stay, but you're still reaping the benefits from it. So the fact that you're testifying today makes things very, very complicated, if you ask me, because she saw herself as a girlfriend and not an escort, but yet he was still treating her like one. She hated that he only wanted her for the freak offs. He didn't want her for anything else, and I hope she sees it now. Like I said, it was plenty of times throughout the testimonies when she would break down, she would be crying because she's saying it out loud for the first time, and I think it's finally clicking for her, like, wow, he really used me, and I kept begging and pleading, like, please don't be using me. And there was voice messages and text messages where he was just like, "Baby girl, chill out. Girl, stop. You tripping. If you're going to be acting like this, I'll cut you off. I'll disappear. I don't need this. I don't deserve this. I'm being honest with you. I could be lying to you, but you tripping. I'm out here making money and doing what I can and making sure you have a roof over your head. The one that's you living under, I'm doing all that. I'm handling all that. And you complaining to me about some bitches." That's how he was going off about, like he's some pimp and he doing everything for her and she's being ungrateful. It's crazy, but that gives straight pimp vibes. Only certain people aren't going to see it. Some people are going to be able to look at it and be like, "Nigga, what you thought was a pimp? Do you realize pimping is illegal?" So that's what that gives to me. Hell, there was even some nasty moments when she wanted to escorts to wear condoms. And she would always try to implement condoms, or she would try to, persuade him to allow condoms. And he'll be like, "Nah, you already done took that dick. Raw, why? Why we need a condom now? I don't like seeing that shit." He would get mad. He would pout or whatever until he got his way. She would allow them to fuck without condoms. It was ridiculous. There was one time when she basically broke down crying doing a freak off, and he was disgusted by her. Like, he looked at her like, "Are you serious? Are you serious? This what you giving?" And he walked away and left her. Like, it was just ridiculous how he would use that against her over and over and over and over and over again. And although I do believe in victims, I do believe when people are telling someone that they're being taken advantage of, they're being used. She was definitely being used for sex. She was definitely being taken advantage of. She was definitely being treated like an escort. But what's going to be a hard thing, and it's going to be an easy layup for the defense, is going to make it look like you allowed yourself to be treated that way. You kept saying you didn't want to be treated that way, and he kept saying, "I'm going to do this, and you ain't got to be here." He kept giving her so many options to leave. That's what's going to be complicated. It's not like the Cassie situation that whenever she tried to leave, he would go and beat her and bring her back. He would blow up cars and stuff. That's not what's happening here. He kept telling her, "Look, we ain't got to talk. I don't need you. Go on about your business if you're going to be complaining and crying all the time." That's what he would say. So it's going to be hard for the prosecution to get over that hurdle. And I know the defense, when they finally get to like drilling her and going in on her, they are going to rip her to shreds with that stuff. And I hope she's ready, because the way they did Mia and they tossed her wig around, I don't know if Jane gonna be ready, because they gonna hit her with a lot of stuff. They definitely gonna hone in on the fact that he's paying for everything to this day. How could somebody be such a monster and they're paying for everything? I just can hear what they're gonna say. You know what I mean? And the defense are doing so many circus tricks. They're doing so many curveballs, and they're just sitting up there trying to come up with magic tricks and how they can get out of this and get out of that and get out of this, which is what the defense is supposed to do. They're supposed to find loopholes, but sometimes it could be a little bit like, are you serious? That's a reach. So again, they're asking for another mistrial. They just did this once before. They're trying to get a mistrial because when Cassie was on the stand, she testified that one of the victims she had seen being thrown over the balcony by him, right? He was hanging over the balcony. Well, now I guess they're trying to say, the defense is trying to say there's text messages saying that Cassie did not see that, and that prosecutors allowed Cassie to go on the stand and lie. So therefore, they're trying to call for a mistrial. I don't think there will be one. They're gonna decide tomorrow on Tuesday. The judge will in the court. They'll decide if there'll be a mistrial. I don't think there will be one, but it does bring some alarm bells that it's like, oh God, prosecution, you guys got to do better. I really want them to step it up. I think the prosecution is doing pretty good, but the defense ain't playing with their ass. I swear, they looking for every mistake, every mishap, every little misunderstanding, everything they can find a way to be like semantic police about. They are doing that, which is their job. And they're doing that to find ways to either make a mistrial, find a way to appeal if he does get convicted. Just little stuff that they're trying to compile together. So when it's their turn, they finna just let it rip. I'm so terrified for Jane though, because I know once the defense get a hold of her, they're not letting her go. She gonna get turned every way but loose. And I hope she's ready, because the fact that she's still basically involved with Diddy in some way, in some form or how, I don't know how she can defend that bar. I don't know where they're gonna go with that. So I really hope, I don't know, man. I'm not saying I'm losing hope in the case. I do see how Diddy is cooked in a lot of ways. I just don't know. I think Jane Doe really should have been, I think she could have been left off for this. I really think she could have been left off for this. I don't think we needed her. I don't think she's adding nothing. I don't think she's adding a lot. Yes, she's showing his manipulation tactics. She's showing how he's controlling and using money over her. But I think there's so many other options other than her, because I think they're going to find so many loopholes in her testimony. And if they find any way that she's lying or contradicting herself, which she does in her text messages, because even if you show text messages where she's like saying she don't want the freak off, she's also asking for dick. She's also saying she want to do it. She's also setting it up. Like, I don't know. It's not comparable to Cassie at all. So I don't know what to say for this. And I'm wishing the best for the prosecutors, because they're going to have a long road ahead of them. This is not an easy battle. Diddy has some of the best defense lawyers, and they're pulling out all the stops. I wish them all the luck, baby. May the odds forever be in your favor, as they say in Hunger Games, because, yeah, they playing ball right now, and it's the motherfucking Super Bowl, and they're here to win. I am rooting for prosecutors to get that shit together. But the longer Jane Doe up there, I'll be glad when they get to the real abuse and all that, the more violent stuff. But before I get into more of the violent stuff that they did touch on, because they did touch on some of the violent stuff, like she kind of basically broke down an event that happened last year. But before we can get there, let's kind of go back a little bit, okay? Because I do realize I forgot some parts. So when Cassie dropped her lawsuit in November of 2023, she was with him. Yes, she was. And when she was with him, she said she wasn't with him physically at the time, but she read the entire complaint. She saw all of that. She saw when he issued the payment. She said that once that happened, he called her and he kept saying he can't talk on the phone right now. You know, he can't really talk about this. He can't really say that. but he was basically just saying, or basically getting her to say, and you could tell he was recording her because she said she could hear him writing something on a notepad. So literally taking notes from the call. So he would basically like, yeah, we were just doing some kinky stuff, consensual sex, and we were just having some freaky stuff. Nothing went wrong, nothing this. Whether he was talking about Cassie or Jane, I'm not sure because we don't really have clarity on that. But basically, yeah, he was recording the conversation, and somehow she didn't even know she was being recorded because she wasn't the one recording it. And because of that, he was even asking her if she was recording. So while he's asking her and interrogating her questions, or interrogating her with questions, and basically just saying stuff and getting her to say stuff, it reminds me of how they had. I remember in the indictment they had evidence of him making calls to numerous people around that time when the Cassie complaint came out, when she sued him or whatever. He had been making a lot of calls to a lot of people, basically trying to get them to, refresh his memory on what's going on, basically trying to get them to say on the phone that nothing happened. And he was most likely recording them so he can use it for a day like this. Even after that, when the video of the abuse came out with Cassie and that incident in the hotel, she was with him. She was with him physically in bed with him when she saw that happen. Basically, the son came in the room, told him, hey, something's going on. He left. She checked the phone, saw what was happening. They all went into a huddle, and it was like a PR movement of what he should do. How should he go forward for this? They all decided that he should make an Instagram post. We all remember the social media post when he came out. He basically apologized. He wouldn't say Cassie's name. What it would. Come to find out, basically there was multiple different videos and different social media posts that was drafted before they could decide on the right one. They decided on the right one. She gave some more feedback on what he should do in the situation as far as PR goes, and then basically she went on back to her home or whatever, and he issued out the statement. She felt like it wasn't genuine. The defense objected to it because they felt like she shouldn't have added that in there. So, of course, prosecutors agreed to remove that from the testimony. But I mean, every time they strike stuff from a testimony, I feel like if I was in a jury, I still heard the shit. I don't know what that's supposed to mean for me. I still heard it. Yeah, I'm supposed to pretend like I didn't hear, but I heard it. Okay. And so, even after that, she was still dealing with him. And in June of last year, they had an incident, which I was, referring to earlier. They had an incident where basically they weren't on drugs or anything, but basically they got into an argument because he had been in Utah with his family event, I guess, or with some family event, I don't know. He was in Utah, and he had just got back, and she was questioning him about who he had been with, what some women he was with. Apparently some women that was 25 years younger than him, and so she was calling him a pedophile, even though that's not a pedophile. But she was basically saying this woman ain't even old enough to drink, and you got her in Utah with you, and y'all doing this, woo woo. He's saying they're not having sex. Needless to say, it turns into this big old fight. She's throwing glasses at him. She's throwing candles at him, getting some of the wax on him. She's mushing him. Somehow it leads to them getting on the balcony. Before even getting to the balcony, actually, I'm not sure what was the chain of events. Regardless of the matter, they had a huge domestic fight. Basically, he kicked a lot of her doors in. Everywhere she would go to run and hide, he was kicking the doors in. He grabbed her by the throat, was choking her, put her off to the ground with her throat, basically. Choking her out, punched her in the head a few times. She was in a fetal position on the balcony, and even then he was grabbing her by the arm and by the hair and punching her in the head and basically telling her, you're not going to fuck this up for me. You're not going to take me away from my family. And she felt like she was finally seeing what she had read in that complaint that Cassie did. She suddenly was able to really connect and relate to what she was reading in the complaint. She had touched on when she read the complaint that she was able to see, a lot of the things that was happening as far as the sexual things and all the freak offs and how he was making her, Cassie, do all these things. It related to her. And even though all that was happening, he still gave her money to pay for the doors and fix all that up. He basically, they agreed to take some ecstasy and take some drugs or whatever, have an escort come over. They was going to have an escort come over. They were going to do their thing. They big woo. She didn't want to do it. She said she didn't want to do it. They argued about it or whatever. He made her take the drug, tell her to do it or whatever. Allegedly, she had to take the drug, so she did the drug, did some oral, had sex with the escort, Antoine. and sent him some money, sent him on his way. But basically, yeah, he basically, in a way, even last year, after the raid had happened, after the settlement with Cassie, after knowing that there was an investigation, he was still out here doing the same shit, still being abusive, still forcing drugs on people, still trying to do all these freak offs and stuff. Like, something's going on mentally with him, and I don't even think that should be an excuse or a justification, but something's going on where you're in the middle of an investigation and you're still trying to fucking beat and be a pimp. Like, you're still thinking you're untouchable, huh? And you're blaming everyone else. Everybody else is trying to get you locked up. Everybody else is trying to get you taken away from your family. When, nigga, you're getting yourself locked up. You're taking yourself away from your family. You're the one ending it. You're the one doing all these things. And to this day, I think he's keeping her as far as still paying for everything, because he was still paying for everything up until that. She showed the receipts of him, spending the money on the doors to be fixed and the repair for that. And she spoke on how she had knots and she covered it up with hair and, just a lot of things like that. And I think he got her lawyer and paid for her lawyer right when the raids had happened. So once the raids had happened and took place, I guess he lawyered up with anybody on his team and anybody affiliated with him, just in case they got, called in or had to testify or give a statement or be investigated or be interrogated. He basically got them all lawyers. So it's a lot of things that I think, depending on who's looking at it, they can see a lot of this as coercion. They can look at this as him trying to control the situation, him paying off people, him using this as, the racketeering of it all, the sex trafficking of it all, the violence, the financial control he was using. A lot of this plays a role, and he was still doing this up until his last second breath before he went to jail. He was doing all these things. And the fact that he's still paying for everything, I think he's doing it on purpose, because I think he believes if he cuts her off now, it won't look good. So he's going to keep taking care of her and doing those things for her so it can make him look like a great Samaritan who really, really cares. Knowing he's been recording and probably plotting on using her as a ploy, I'm pretty sure the defense is going to eat her up and they're going to try to bring and put all of it on her. They're going to try to paint it all on her. That was the whole goal from the gist, which is why I don't understand why Jane Doe is up here. But she is, and we're here to deal with it. But yeah, outside of the violence and all the sexual abuse and everything else she was forced to deal with, it's going to be hard. It's really going to be an uphill battle, because I think the violent story is what's really needed. But because a lot of it seems more like two people fighting each other, some people may chalk it up as y'all just a toxic relationship. And they may not see it as him sexually abusing her or physically abusing her or assaulting her or anything like that, no matter what she says. So it's going to be interesting to see what the defense says in return, in retaliation to that, because I'm pretty sure they're going to touch on all of that. They may not, because they don't typically like touch on the abuse. They like to pretend like they don't hear that. They focus on the little nitty gritty things, like little small little fractures that prosecutors may allow the person on the stand to say, or little inconsistencies in the story or the inconsistencies in the facts or the timing of things. They're going to hone in on that, because that's what they've been doing this whole time, and look at any avenue they can with a mistrial or any avenue they can to see if there's a way they can win this case and get Diddy free. Needless to say, it's all a mess. It's all a mess. It's a catastrophe. It's straight chaos all around. And I'm just hanging on by a thread. I'm just hanging on, just watching, just seeing where we're going with it. Some of the stuff has been a little bit boring, I won't lie, because there's a lot of repetitive stuff over going through text messages and I love you and I hate you and I love you and I hate you and why don't you want to spend time with me? A lot of that is getting repetitive. So I'm glad we finally got to the violence of it all. I'm glad we're finally honing in on the timeline and getting closer to where we are in present day. And I do think there's more to be said with the testimony, because based on what they said, there's more evidence of more things. I do hear that they show these pictures of the home with the doors that was messed up and stuff and all of that. I'm pretty sure they showed those pictures to the jury, so you're able to see that there was damage. There was a physical altercation between the two. He hasn't changed. He can't keep saying, oh, I was in my dark days back then when I was with Cassie. No. He even told her that, Jane Doe, he even told her that that was just one incident. And as we know from Cassie's testimony and from other testimonies, that was not the only time that he abused her. So he was lying. So I do think he tried to clean up his image a little bit as far as the abuse goes, but he got caught slipping. It came out, it showed, she triggered him somehow by accusing him and attacking him or whatever, physically or verbally. And that's where we at. As far as day 19, that's where we are right now. And tomorrow we're going to find out if there's going to be a mistrial or not. And then we're going to get into more things with Jane Doe. I'm not sure when defense is going to start, but we shall see. We shall see. And on that note, you may know, and if you don't know, you know now. That's Live with Robbie on the Linkin with Robbie podcast. And this is the U.S. versus Combs trial.